Hello there, I would like to discuss the legendary series of slashers, as you already understand from the video title. We will talk about Devil May Cry. I'm dead sure you've heard about Dante and Virgil, even if you're not familiar with this game series because of this memes. It's common to skip first and second parts of series right to the third one. But even though they might seem not as fascinating, it's still pretty interesting to learn about series history. To begin with, I would like to discuss how the first part of Devil May Cry was created. The history of this game starts with a game designer named Hideki Kamiya, who was responsible for releasing Resident Evil 2, accepted warmly by players. And he was entrusted with releasing another part, the fourth part at that. Kamiya wanted to take the fourth part beyond the boundaries of the survival horror genre and add more action. He came up with a new character, Tony Redgrave, and gave him main weapon, 2 pistols, ebony and ivory, and came up with a story that he, the son of an ordinary woman named Eva and one of the founders of Umbrella Corporation, Lord Spencer. According to the plot, this Tony had to be a genetically modified person, able to perform scary stunts and triple somersaults without a rotation. Eventually, though, Tony was renamed to Dante, and the whole idea was dropped because all of this was too far from the Resident Evil canon. But the idea itself was not bad. Capcom decided to turn it into a new series and eventually released Devil May Cry. This Resident Evil context was essential for today's story, you'll see it later. In the beginning, we are given a little of background lore, from which we learned that a long time ago, demons were beefing with humans, and one demon realized that there was an uneven battle, and decided to side with humans, destroying unholy creatures, and started to keep order on Earth, protecting humans. This demon's name was Sparda. Then we see a woman landing right next to the Devil May Cry office. Inside it, we can notice all the attributes of a real tough guy. Booze, pizza, and demonic heads hanging on the walls, pierced with swords. The owner of the office having a phone call offering a job, but from his words, he only works with the provision of a certain password. Finally, Lady elegantly enters the room. Our guy takes his steel, damn what a sword, and says that he only deals with special cases, so she'd better leave him alone. All of a sudden, elegant lady, starts yapping about how you're the one whose mother and brother were taken by the forces of evil 20 years ago, the son of the legendary knight Sparda, whose name is Dante, yar yar ya. And Dante realizes that things smell fishy and says, "Get your skinny ass over here so I'll kick it," or something like that. Now Lady laughs over a poor boy saying, "And you are that Dante?" throwing at him her iron thing, whatever this is on which she burst in. Dante replies that from birth, the power of a demon flows in his veins, and she will feel them directly on her ass. But then the lady backs down, saying that she was just joking and testing him because she needs the help of a real professional in a certain matter. Her name is Trish, by the way, and when she takes off her glasses, Dante is a little shocked, after which the frame switches to a photo of a woman. I think now we can immediately say that it's a photo of Dante's mother, and Trish looks extremely similar to her. Then Trish explains to us that 20 years ago, the emperor of the other world named Mundus was resurrected, and it was him who Sparda had a beef with back in the day, also hinting that 20 years ago Dante lost his mother and brother, and Mundus was reborn at the same time. Some of you may be shocked because in the third part, which is a prequel to the first, there really was Dante's brother Virgil, but there was no mention of a mother. And right away, I would like to say that the first 2 parts will be filled with inconsistencies with the rest of the series, as, at the time, the third part was not only a prequel, but also a reboot of the series, which turned the game upside down, which is why the plot was adjusted to fit the existing canon, while some moments were simply ignored. Let's go back to the first part. Mundus is now on Mallet Island, where Dante and Trish arrive. At this point, Trish tells him to go ahead, and she herself jumps onto the rocks on her own. This is where the main meme of this game starts, because at this point, the plot of the first part almost ends, causing it to stand out from the rest of the series. Even in the number of missions, the game is different, as in all the next parts, and even in the reboot. There were 20, while here there are 23, and the plot almost stops until the end of the game, Before that, we study the local flora and fauna and how to play this game. I would also like to mention that this game is very different in terms of gameplay. For example, there is no such sword as Rebellion. Instead, we can only enjoy a different sword right at the beginning, which can't be upgraded. Variety of its attacks real poor, and it carries more of a narrative meaning than gameplay. Here we also return to Resident Evil, as many of the developments were left, considering that it would fit this game perfectly. In this part, we don't have aerial combos, and there are not many moves overall. In addition to this, the firearms here are very different, as if they are much stronger than melee weapons due to the impact it makes because of speed and damage. There are even mobs and bosses that will be almost impossible to defeat in close combat, but more on that later. Finally, we have reached the gameplay. The game kicks off with the entrance to the castle. Almost immediately, we come across a yellow orb that allows us to respawn at the entrance to the room in which we died upon death. Other orbs include red, used as in-game currency and dropped by enemies in some level completion. Blue, collecting enough blue orb fragments grants us a full orb that increases our health throughout the game. Green, they heal us and drop from defeated enemies. And white orbs fill our devil trigger gauge, a powered-up version of Dante that deals increased damage and passively restores health upon use. Entering the castle hall, we collect all the red orbs present, and a door opens into the next location. We then climb up the spiral staircase, jump into a hole in the ceiling, and retrieve the rusty key from the statue's hands. As soon as we possess the key, a marionette comes to life and attacks us, marking the first enemy encounter. Nothing extraordinary about it, just a regular enemy attacking with daggers. Descending the spiral staircase back to the hall, we use the key to open the blue doors. Inside the room, we collect a blue orb fragment and find an unusual elevator, which requires several hits on a specific mechanism to operate. The elevator takes us to the basement, where we deal with the marionettes before returning. Moving on to the second mission, we pass through a corridor and come across a statue with a sword. When Dante tries to take it, the sword impales him, but he dramatically stands up and swings the sword, demonstrating a new weapon we will use for the rest of the game. Unlike the previous one, we can upgrade this sword. We then inspect a painting, retrieve a key from it, and pick up a shotgun. Entering the inner courtyard, we need to defeat the puppets and reach the second floor through the door. After dealing with the enemies and examining the room we entered, we strike the coffin on the right, moving it from the hatch and jump inside. We collect the Staff of Judgment from the statue at the bottom and exit into the library, where we face 3 scissor-wielding witches, whom we can easily defeat with the shotgun. In the corridor, we insert the staff into the statue's hands, opening a passage behind it. In these statues between levels, we can also purchase new moves for the Alistair sword besides consumables. Entering a large hall with curved, pulsating columns, we inspect a sign, which releases a beam and opens a door. We proceed through it and reach a bridge, walking to the dome. We examine the depiction of the lion and Hermes' staff, and when we return, we get struck by lightning, causing the bridge to collapse. We find ourselves underwater receiving damage, motivating us to quickly navigate, deal with skeletons, and head up. Returning to the hall, we are now able to take the sign, but immediately after, we face the first boss of the game, the Fire Scorpion. After a few fiery exchanges, we engage in battle. The boss isn't too challenging, but it may pose a minor challenge due to unfamiliarity. Once we defeat this Shy, we proceed to the next level. Returning to the corridor to reach the courtyard with the fountain and lion statue, we are chased by the scorpion we had just defeated. Dodging its attacks, we getting our ass to the courtyard, deactivating the barrier on the lion statue, and breaking it. A mini-boss panther emerges from the statue. It's quite a pain in the ass, but we simply shoot it with a shotgun while evading its attacks. After several hits, a glowing sphere emerges from the panther, which we break using the devil trigger. After dealing with the phantom, a door opens on the upper balcony, leading us to an elevator shaft, where we go down to the bottom, strike a symbol, and go up to a decorative sword. Death sentence. Descending a bit, and enter the bedroom. Inserting the sword into the statue on the right, we obtain a ball, soon after which our reflection emerges from the mirror, and transforms into a demonic knight, challenging us to a battle and jumping into the balcony courtyard. We follow and engage in a fight with the boss, who is immune to bullets due to the armor, so we strike him on the head with the sword. There are no stages or specific strategies, so I hit this asshole 2 times, one in the face and one nailing coffin lid. After defeating the boss, a cinematic showing us transitioning into a hand-to-hand fight plays, during which we start receiving hits. However, the knight retreats upon seeing our amulet. We then need to return the artifact we picked up from the statue before the boss fight, but it's gradually fading, and we need to accomplish it within 3 minutes. Beginning in the courtyard, where we fought the boss, we face the panther again, deal with it as before, jump to the balcony, exit to the elevator shaft, and descend to insert the ball into the lift shaft. We find ourselves in the partially flooded corridors of the castle and proceed to a side door in a large hall, where we pick up the rusty key. As soon as we take it, insects attack us, which we kill using the shotgun before returning to the corridor where more insects have appeared. We enter one of the passages, collect the green orbs, break a statue to obtain red orbs, and advance through the corridor. In the following corridor, we fall for a trap and have to defeat another mini-boss. Now that is a tough hecker, but through the pain and tears, we defeat the creature and take a new key. This artifact gradually reduces our health supply, so we rush back to the elevator shaft, ascend to the bedroom, and insert the key into the altar of the sun. This opens a door leading to the upper floor of the initial hall, where we jump over a gap and enter a 2-story hall, collect orbs, and exit through a blue door, leading to another huge scorpion attack. The scorpion acts similarly but now fires fireballs more frequently and exposes its head less often. We defeat the demon creature and knock it onto the glass ceiling, which shatters, causing it to fall on the spear of a statue in the hall and eventually perish. Trish notices all this from a distance and is amazed by our strength. Advancing to the passage that is now open, we pick up the trident, then jump into a pit where we pick up a grenade launcher and descend into a white chamber. Placing the trident in a mechanism, we sprint down to the hall, ensuring a timely arrival before a barred door descends, prompting us to return if we miss it. Dante lands in a graveyard and, descending a staircase, arrives at the backyard of the castle. From beneath the ground, new enemies emerge, lizards with swords and shields. It's best to frequently leap and strike them from behind. We grab scattered consumables and proceed through the gate in the center. We reach a courtyard where platforms appear, allowing us to climb to a small island where we find our new weapon, the Ifrit fire gloves. They automatically replace the sword and can be upgraded with a different weapon moveset. Strikes with the gloves can be charged, dealing increased damage to enemies. Returning to the main courtyard, we face an attack from a griffin. This boss fight where we fighting with a mainly distant weapon, and when he land his feathered ass, we activate Devil Trigger and pluck him in a close combat. After the victory, Griffin will fly away, and we need to light the second torch near the door with our new weapon. We enter a misty park. The door ahead is closed. To open it, we need to collect 200 red orbs, which need to be knocked out from the appearing enemies. New enemies will meet us here. Steel dolls with fiery blades and fiery breath. We leave the castle and find ourselves at a crossroads with a stone marker. If we go the wrong way, we will be teleported to the castle gate. It is impossible to know the right way in advance, as it is constantly random, and the correct path must be determined using white souls that drops from killed enemies, and we have to follow them to the gates. This location will repeat 3 times. The only difference will be in the enemies. After passing the crossroads, we will come to a meadow, where a pair of large spiders will attack us, spitting stones and pouncing on us. After the battle, we collect everything scattered in the location and go out through the central gates. We go out into the courtyard, where the spirit with a scythe flies around. In case you were wondering, it's the same mini-boss bastard that was previously with the scissors, but now he can release whirlwinds that will toss us around. We can kill him, but I'm not bothering. So we go down into this technological hole and deal with the reptilians. To the right of the shop, we break the wall and take the brain. Life would be much easier if it could be done in real life. We return to the scythe guy, ignore him again and run past. We fall down, insert the brain, and take the chalice. As soon as we do this, Nelo Angelo appears again. Fighting him is no different. We beat him and run to place the chalice on top. We go down, cut the puppets, and descend into the water. This is the only DMC with a water level, and it even includes a first-person view. There's no weapons to deal with enemies in the water, so we climb onto the ship. We collect everything here, namely a star and a harpoon, which only works in water and selects automatically. We go out on deck and try to enter the captain's cabin, where the scythe goat attacks us again. We break his horns, and the ship starts to emerge from the cave. In the open space, a griffin attacks us. The only difference about this battle is a spirit that constantly pulls us towards it. After dealing with the griffin, we go to the captain's cabin and take the scepter. The ship starts sinking and we find ourselves underwater with lizards that we have to deal with. But now we have a harpoon, and we don't really care. As we resurface, we enter a tunnel with spikes and take the shield from a young man, triggering a trap with the floor moving and spikes appearing. After escaping, we take the lift. Here we jump down to the very bottom, destroy enemies, pay 200 Indonesian tubrics, and enter a location that is a mirrored copy of the narrow courtyard where we were before. Here we once again show that we don't care about all the puppets, unless it's Chucky, of course. We pay another 100 tubrics and go to the large courtyard we have already been to. Now, with a shield, we can open 2 doors that were closed earlier. First, we go to the red shield, take the luminite there, and now this item will illuminate the area near Dan. We go down to the semicircular corridor with a moving floor and spikes in the walls, activate 2 symbols, take the pair of lances, and leave. It's not mandatory to go through the second door, but here we will take a new gun. There is the same corridor. We go through and take the new weapon, the laser. Now we can go to the main gates, to the Colosseum. Here is another boss fight with the griffin. He is no different. There won't even be a spirit that attracted us last time. After roasting this rooster, he will try to fly away, but he will be crushed by a column. Then he'll start asking for help from his boss, Mundus. But he, appearing as 3 red eyes in the sky, does the opposite and finishes off the bird. Then Trish appears, and we swear to her to settle the score with Mundus. We hop into the elevator, take the wheel of destiny, and no, it's not MDMA. We return back and walk along the path that is illuminated, lower the bridge, and return to the hall, which is now dark and lacks the statue. As soon as we activate the symbol, we are introduced to a new mob, an electric bat that can turn into a human. We enter the blue doors where the plane is located and go to the cathedral where we fought the scorpion. There are several puddles. Approaching one of them will trigger a cutscene and a new boss will emerge from the puddle. A pile of crap. This boss is also quite easy. We turn on the light using the symbols and hit the boss at the sphere that it periodically releases. The boss can grab us with its fluid and transport us to another world, where there will be skulls and the weakened boss scorpion. After dealing with the fluid, we go out through the central door and use the Staff of Hermes. Then the paintings appear. We jump into the left one and finish the level. We climb out of the basement and encounter a mini-boss of ice lizards. There are 2 of them. We need to kill them just like regular lizards, but these can also cast ice spells, so we need to be careful passing through. We can use Ifrit to deal more damage to them. We proceed through the corridor and spot a dragon skeleton that shoots fireballs. We return fire at it with our sword and a spotlight appears. We aim it at the mirror above and invisible platforms appear, which light up after a bolt of lightning strikes outside the window. We climb on them and collect the loot. We then return back to the corridor and head to another intersection, using Quicksilver to open the door. Another confrontation with the knight begins. This time he even takes off his helmet and goes all out. But the strategy against him remains the same. We wait for his attacks and then strike him down. After the victory, he once again eludes us, dropping an amulet exactly like ours. This triggers Dante's memories of how his mother gave amulets to him and his brother. Yes, all this time we've been dealing with his brother. Next, we see Trish reporting to Mundus that Virgil got his butt kicked and couldn't do anything. After the cutscene, the 2 amulets combine into the perfect amulet, causing our standard sword from the beginning of the game to transform into the Sparta sword, It has 3 forms: a polearm, a scythe, and the sword itself. We return to the room with the paintings via the disc in the center of the room, but now only one painting is accessible. We jump into it and find ourselves in a flooded prison. We deal with witches and exit into the elevator shaft. At the very beginning, we hit a symbol to flood the shaft and move up, take an egg, and go out to the courtyard with a fountain and throw the egg into the smoking bowl. We encounter the boss of Jelly again and defeat this boss using the same strategy. The only thing that has changed is that if we land in the boss's jelly, we'll have to fight the griffin instead of the scorpion. After defeating the boss, we take the elixir that obtained from the egg. We enter the room with the paintings, but now they don't work. We descend and teleport back to the dome, jump into the bedroom, and go out to the balcony to take the Philosopher's Stone. New enemies attack us. These crawling freaks can only jump and attack at close range. They can also increase in size by putting on a mask, and when they die, they spray acid, so it's best not to get close to their corpses. Once we've dealt with these foes, we climb through the hole on the balcony and return through the mirror, flying back to the dome, and from there to the castle. After examining the purple puddle, we enter the reflection on the ceiling of the cathedral, insert the Philosopher's Stone, and jump into the abyss. We find ourselves inside the monster, in front of the heart. We make our way through the tunnel, where instead of doors, there are these membranes that we tear as if we were at a prom and proceed. We defeat 2 lizards and move on to the next location where Trish calls for our help. When we approach her, we fall into a trap. Here, for the 3rd time, we have to annihilate this heap of rubbish. Either I'm really tired of the same bosses, or this version of the jelly really does more damage because there have been quite a number of attempts, to be honest. Also, its health is noticeably higher. Moreover, if the boss now catches us in its jelly, we will have to fight a weaker version of our brother. After leaving the boss with a quarter of its health, Trish hits us with lightning, but the battle continues. After the boss's death, the columns start to collapse and fly towards Trish. Of course, we save her, but only because she resembles our mother, and then we tell her to stay away from us. Next, we proceed to the room with the heart, break down the thickening, and a door that was previously closed opens. We go there. Tentacles emerge from the walls, and if not cut, they significantly reduce our health, so we need to keep an eye on these nuisances. We exit into the stomach, but instead of juice, there is lava. We activate the symbols and jump up, reaching the upper level above the heart. We activate the symbol, and the heart starts pulsating and opens a passage to the final boss. We find ourselves in a white throne room, where there is a statue of Mundus, and Trish is held captive. As soon as Dante notices Trish, Mundus shoots at us, similar to Cyclops from the X-Men, and the stone beast tries to attack us. Trish sacrifices herself to shield us, and then Dante becomes a full demon. Together, we soar into the sky, where the first half of the battle with the boss takes place. The battle tactic is simple. Shoot at the boss from a distance, and when the trigger is ready, press it to release a fiery dragon at the stone monster. The second phase takes place on the ground after we remove the first portion of Mundus's health. We charge the trigger and shoot at Mundus in demon form. This part is noticeably easier, so there is nothing to stop for, and there is nothing more to say about the boss. After leaving Mundus defeated, we return to Trish. Young Dan regrets that he couldn't save her and starts crying, his tears falling on Trish. In the end, Dante leaves Trish the amulets given to him by his mother and the Sparta sword that belonged to his father, thus making peace with his parents and leaving them together. Then, the last mission begins. In 5 minutes, we need to escape from the crumbling castle due to Mundus's death. However, right before the exit, as is customary, the floor collapses and we fall down, where Mundus is teleported, saying there is nowhere to run. Dante has nothing against sacrificing himself to defeat a monster like this, so that it cannot return to this world. The battle is too easy. We just stand under the boss and start attacking. Afterward, he transforms into something. I do not even know how to describe it, and our attacks prove to be useless. However, Dante hears his mother's voice, telling him everything will be okay. And then Trish appears, screaming, "Take my power!" As if this were not a slasher, but a new Dragon Ball series, as our guns, Ebony and Ivory, are powered up, and the moment that became the series' trademark occurs.
It looks like we have a winner.
Jackpot.
After defeating the enemy, we reunite with Trish, who is crying tears of joy, surprising both of them, as tears are a human gift that demons are not capable of shedding. Trish says it's too late for them, but then the plane from the beginning of the game falls. Dante, with his classic flair, starts the plane, and they both begin to fly off the island, which ultimately explodes. As they fly through the sky, Trish feels that she is no longer the same as she was, rejoices in the sky and feels her soul becoming as pure as the sky itself. Dante begins to work with Trish, and it is shown that they have changed the name of their organization, now with a sign reading, "Devil Never Cry" over the entrance, and Dante and Trish go on a new mission. So that was Devil May Cry. In conclusion, this game had its own ideas, many of which were carried over from the development of Resident Evil, such as the game's atmosphere, its music, and the filling of the locations, all very dark compared to the rest of the series. The unique bosses do fit into the series, but the fact that they are repeated is not pleasing. Dante himself is not fully developed as a character. The only thing shown is that he is a cool guy with trollish antics. It's hard to sympathize with Trish, so we don't feel sorry when she sacrifices herself for us. The gameplay is pleasant, more relaxing and calm. It should be noted that in boss battles, you fight not one-on-one, but with the boss and their sidekick, the camera, which can show walls or completely block the view of the boss. In the end, the company completely changed the direction of the subsequent Devil May Cry games, giving us a truly legendary series of slashers that could not be matched by God of War or Bayonetta. It is truly interesting to wonder where Devil May Cry would have gone if Capcom had continued this story, similar to Resident Evil. Thank you so much for watching this video, and my only request is to support the channel by subscribing and waiting for the next parts, which will also be dedicated to the adventures of Dan. And after completing all the games in the series, we will move on to another, no less legendary batch of games.